The French Prime Minister loses his no confidence vote. Not the president, so Macron still's hanging on, but again, it's indicative across Western Europe at the moment, or across Europe full stop, of, I think it's a shift in the political winds. The governments that have largely been leftist or left aligned, or people say progressive, or Labour parties, that sort of thing, have parties that were on a push for globalization concepts. I mean, there are articles from even a year ago saying has globalization failed, as a bunch of nations around the world start focusing on nationalism again, protecting national industries, protecting their own economies at the cost of globalist or globalized agreements, etc. The Trans-Pacific Party, the Trans-Pacific TPP or TPA, TPP, was shut down, was cancelled by Trump in his first administration. There's been, I mean, the US pulled out of the Paris Accords. There's, all sorts of things where a shift towards globalization has been very suddenly turned around and shifted away again. And with that has also come the rise of parties like AfD in Germany, the increasing prominence of National Front led by Marine Le Pen in France, the Reform Party in England, seemingly, in the UK, seemingly swamping the Tories and Labour in terms of popularity. I can't think of the name of the party in the Netherlands, but there's a similar thing going on in the Netherlands. Same in Italy. Now, some of these are, especially in the Mediterranean countries, it seems to be more a response to the Mediterranean migration problem that's going on, and governments have started to trend far more conservative as a result. And we're going to see what happens coming out of the elections coming up in Germany, how much support AfD attracts. There was also the issues surrounding recent elections in Romania, where it was alleged of external influence. But it was happening was one group of external influences complaining that a group of external influences were apparently taking place, and therefore the outcome wasn't really what the people wanted. It should have been the other way. And yeah, so I didn't know the French Parliament was this on edge. Obviously, the last time that this sort of stuff was covered was more the presidential elections and the threat that Marine Le Pen posed to Macron. Uh, this one, yeah, it seemed rather sudden. There'd been issues about New Caledonia and their relationship back to France and how France was managing it, but it had largely gone under the radar, largely for outside of France, about how unstable the government in France had been. And so that is indicative of a nation that's very much split politically. That the power sharing, either people need to get over themselves and accept compromise, or need to stop asking for things that people will never agree to. So, as it says there, Macron's had 6 prime ministers since 2017, 5 of whom since 2022. So, quite clearly, there, and I think that would have been the last time, or when they had the widespread elections, and National Front were really sort of not meddling with things, but were saying, look, we're not going to agree to coalitions of things. In fact, I do remember there were parties that were very much weirdly. It was weird, the parties that were agreeing to work with each other in order to shut out National Front. And the cautious observer back then would have said there was very little chance of there being long-term stability because these parties were so opposed to each other on every other point of view that the only reason they were coming together was basically to block out Marine Le Pen's party. And so when the only thing you're coming together to do is when it's only one issue bringing you together, you're not gonna survive for long. So it will be interesting. I mean, the ability to pass budgets, always the thing that'll take governments down, or inability to take down governments. The National Rally. I thought they were called National Front. Okay, well, National Rally Party. Um, uh, yeah, the lack of majority. So of course she's going to come out and mention things. If they have to go to election and fully dissolve Parliament and go to election, you'd expect, or the expectation is that Marine Le Pen and her party are going to pick up seats and everything else. Um, even though they went after her in the courts. Now, again, you're seeing um, parties, you're seeing people like Marine Le Pen chased away in the courts, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Trump in the US. There was almost an observation by people external to everything that all of a sudden coordinated legal lawfare, as they call it, was taking place against um, conservative and nationalist politicians, leading politicians in various countries. And it just so happened that those three nations had the most coverage on it. But there was likely stuff going on elsewhere as well. I mean, the AFD was not quite called a terrorist party in Germany, but people tried awfully hard to get that. Um, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens if AFD does take power in Germany, whether the CDU and the Greens are suddenly going to feel the boot upon their neck that they try to put on the neck of the AFD. And it'll also be interesting to see what the AFD actually does if they get power. So anyway, but talking of France, yeah, the the very hard left that tried to consolidate, they failed. They failed. Um, and the centrists in France don't necessarily like them either. So yeah, there's some very big splits